I'm Professor Michael Quinlan. I'm the Dean of the School of Law in Sydney of the University of Notre Dame, Australia. I think it's worth mentioning that I've been in that role for 3.5 years. Before that, I worked for 14.5 years at Allens, the law firm Allens. I was a partner there. I was a partner there for 14.5 years, and I worked there for longer than that, so I was there for quite some time.
Thank you. The law of the future. What's the lawyer going to look like in 20 years' time in New South Wales?
Yeah, I think there'll be a lot of changes. I think there'll be significant changes in the structure of law firms. I think there'll be an increase in the number of lawyers. We're seeing that clearly if this trend continues. So there'll be downward pressure on rates. A lot of people who are joining the law, at least at our law school, are joining the law because they're interested in serving the public and helping people. They're not joining the law because they're interested in making a lot of money. So I expect that they'll be looking for more and innovative ways of serving the public in ways to make justice more accessible. I think a model for that may be the Salvo's Legal not-for-profit law firm. That may be one of the ways in which lawyers get involved. I think, as Professor Hitchens said, and I think we've heard from other witnesses as well, I think that the large law firms will get smaller. We've already seen that trend. That's partly because of internationalisation and the desire for international firms to have a fairly consistent per-profit earnings. That means concentrating on those areas which are most profitable and not concentrating on those areas which are least profitable. I do think that we're moving into actually a very exciting time, challenging time, but a very exciting time for law graduates who actually want to practice law, because unlike the position that existed when I joined the profession. At that time, there were a small number of excellent large firms, and as much as they tried to differentiate themselves, they weren't actually very different. I think there are more differences now between the large firms, and because of internationalisation, competition, there's an increasing number of excellent specialist firms which give opportunities for people who want to specialise, and we're seeing a growth in the mid-tier. It's very difficult to look into a crystal ball and predict with any certainty where we're going to be in 20 years' time. But my prediction is smaller, large firms, increasing number of specialist firms, increasing number of firms which are structured in a way which isn't designed specifically to make a lot of money, but really to contribute to the community, and an increasing flexibility of lawyers working internationally. A lot's going to depend obviously on the global economy. One of the things which has been happening for a long time since the GFC really is that global economies aren't booming in the way that they once did. This has led to decreased demand for lawyers internationally at the same time as increasing numbers are being produced in Australia. Smaller numbers are being produced in the US, but I understand they still say in the US that there's an oversupply of law graduates for the law jobs which are there.
Is there an oversupply of law graduates into Australia, into New South Wales?
Yeah, I think answering that question depends on looking at the reason people are studying law. And there's a wide variety of reasons why people are studying law. I can tell you that from personal experience, because at Notre Dame we interview every student that applies to study law with us. So one of the reasons we do that is to talk to them about why they're studying the degree and to encourage them to look at ways in which they can think now about what they're going to be doing when they finish and to improve their prospects of having a job at the end, whether that's in the law or in something else. So you have people who are studying law increasingly these days because they're doing double degrees. I think the people who are doing JDs have already done another degree, so they're probably doing the JD because they actually want to practice law. We don't offer a JD at Notre Dame, so most of our students are doing double degrees. So some of those people will be doing the law as an add-on to the degree that they're really wanting to work in. They may change their mind about that during the course of their studies, but they start off wanting to be an accountant or something, so they see adding the law to their degree will help them. Others do want to practice law, but at Notre Dame it's a very, very small law school, so we have students who are from families where their parents are in the law and they're wanting to join their firm and already working in their firm in some capacity or other. We have students who are working in the firms of friends or family. We have students who do want to work in firms like Allens and they go on to do that. Some go on to do that or to work in other major firms. We have students who want to go into politics who are already working for politicians. So there's a broad range of different reasons people are studying law and a broad range of different outcomes for them.
How is your university adapting its teaching to accommodate the changing legal landscape and to help educate the lawyers of the future?
Yeah, well, I think the first thing we do is we talk to all of the students about what the legal profession is like now and what it is likely to become. So I teach a first semester, first year subject, which is called Legal Process and Statutory Interpretation. Unlike my study of law, right at the get-go, we talk to students about what the law is actually like. In fact, I do that at interview. But during the course, I talk about what the law is actually like, about my own experience of the law, about billable hours, about the way partnerships work, about the different structures of law firms, about the different opportunities that people have to work in the law, in government, rural, which is critically important and undersupplied, suburban, city, large, medium, small. We talk about the fact that, surprisingly, when you look at the statistics, such a large number of lawyers work in sole practitioner firms, which is not what they come in thinking. Such a large number work in government, which is not what they come in thinking. Such a large number work in the category which is undisclosed, which I think is not-for-profits, working for corporate counsel, working for charities, working for religious organisations. So we try to give them a broad range of idea of what the potential opportunities might be, and we give them the best opportunities to develop understandings of how those practices work through our mentoring program and our internship program.
You spoke about the internationalisation of the practice of law. It's a hard word to say. I was speaking to a partner this morning from Ashurst who is the head of their dispute resolution practice in the Asia Pacific region, and we were talking about the offering that they have in Scotland, in Glasgow, with the firm that they've started with about 200, roughly I think, are in the office anyway, but a large number of them are students who graduated with law degrees who couldn't go on to find a practicing role. So they're often doing large discoveries for clients in litigious matters. And I asked him, well, what's their career path in a firm like that where they haven't been able to go and get legal training like we went through when we were young lawyers? And his interesting comment to me was after about 3 or 4 years, there's really no further they can go. So they then try to get back into the profession and then start their legal training. My question to you, if I may, is do you think we're churning out too many law graduates, because we've got students like that who are waiting a few years and then competing with the young students who've only just graduated, and the numbers of unemployed legal students, in my mind, are at very risk of getting greater and greater and greater as the years go on, particularly as the practice of law changes?
Yep. Well, I certainly don't think we're graduating too many lawyers because we're a very small law school. I don't think that we are graduating too many law graduates, actually. I think you need to think about the law degree in a few different ways. First thing is, it's an incredibly helpful degree. It really helps you to understand how a country works. It's a very difficult degree, and I wouldn't disguise that fact, and people shouldn't be undertaking that course unless they're prepared to put in a lot of hard work and they've got the necessary academic ability to begin with. But it is a degree which does really open your mind to how a lot of other things work. So it's an excellent degree to do as an adjunct to another degree, which is what a lot of people do. It's also an excellent degree just to get a basic understanding of how society works. I would never say that it's the new arts degree, because an arts degree is very hard too. I've done one, but a law degree is a very, very difficult thing to do, as we all know. It teaches critical thinking, it teaches careful analysis and consideration. At our place, it also teaches confidence, public speaking skills, advocacy skills, dispute resolution skills. These are all skills which can be...
Can I ask a question a different way then, perhaps?
Yeah.
Do you think it's incumbent upon the universities and the providers of education to be aware of the fact that it's going to be difficult for these young students to get jobs at the end of their careers? Should we be doing something different? Should the universities be doing something different?
Yeah, I think we should be very clear to people who are studying law about what the environment is presently like for employment in the law, so that they know coming into the degree exactly what they're facing. And I think that, it's easy for us because we're a small school, and all of the teachers who teach at our school have come from the profession or are still in the profession. So we all know lawyers, we all have contacts, and we're able to provide for our small number of students in a way which might be very difficult in a large cohort. But I think it is important that students know when they're doing the degree, well, they think about what they're doing the degree for, and they think for themselves about how they're going to get employment at the end. Because there are things that you can do from the beginning and through the course of your 3, 4 or 5 year degree, which will maximise your prospects of employment at the end.
Okay, thank you.
We've heard a lot of talk about technology. Are there other developments that law schools need to be teaching to future lawyers?
Yeah, well, I think I think law schools need to look at developments that are happening in the law. So, for example, the introduction of the PPSA, I think, was a foundational, critical change to the way property law works in Australia. So we introduced that as soon as I joined the law school. I looked at where that was being taught in our compulsory programs. It wasn't being taught in our compulsory programs. So we introduced it into our property course, which is a 2-semester course. We need to look at other developments that are happening. So obviously, being a Catholic university, we're very focused on discrimination, human rights, and these are areas where there is a lot of growth and there's likely to be continued growth. There are also areas where probably there are more students wanting to work in those areas than there will ultimately be jobs, but there's definitely a growth in that sort of area. That's one of the areas that we focus on. We offer electives in those areas for students who are interested in doing that. So it's not just technology. I think there's been a number of questions about technology, and it may be the case that some legal services are delivered electronically without face-to-face discussions. My personal view is that people are more and more looking for personal relationships. That's why they go and see their GP when they don't really need to go and see their GP. That's why suburban lawyers and rural lawyers are critically important, because people, and why even in the large firms, people actually want to meet people and speak to them and get the advice face to face. There's a time certainly for electronic delivery, and at Allen's most of the time these days, and something I tell the students, electronic email is the way in which most legal advice is given. That's true. But still there's a demand for personal contact. And I think that won't change. There may be some people who like to have all of their advice electronically, but I think that there will be a consistent demand for person-to-person contact. That's how people historically, and I think today, decide which lawyer they're going to use, who they like, who they can get along with, who they trust. And that's something they decide by actually meeting the person. So that's something which I don't think is going to change, and something that we need to continue to teach in law schools.